These images were taken by American reconnaissance satellites in January 2024. Right in the middle of the endless Chinese desert, they captured something that took the breath away from analysts all over the world. Among the scorching sands where there is no sign of water or civilization as far as the eye can see, clear silhouettes of giant warships emerged. Their outlines were too perfect and too large to be a coincidence. They stood motionless, like ghosts of a fleet lost in another world, making everyone ask one question: who built an entire squadron right in the middle of the desert? And why? When the first satellite images appeared on analysts' screens, many thought it was a software error or a glitch in the image processing. But on closer examination, there was no doubt. Lying among the sands of the Taklamakan Desert were perfectly shaped silhouettes of what looked like aircraft carriers and destroyers. Huge, detailed, as if someone had taken real warships and simply placed them on land. But why? And more importantly, who? The place is heavily guarded. Watchtowers stand along the perimeter, vehicles patrol, and any unauthorized access is forbidden. It's clearly not an open-air museum or a tourist attraction. Something is happening here that Chinese authorities prefer to keep under the strictest secrecy. And the more new satellite images appeared, the more mysterious the picture became. Next to the ghostly ships runs an equally strange railroad. It is several times wider than normal tracks and cuts through the flat desert in a zigzag pattern. Even though there are no natural obstacles around, the track starts at some warehouse complex, runs straight for several miles, then sharply turns, bends again, and simply ends in the middle of nowhere. No logic, no sense. Why build a railway that leads nowhere? But the most incredible thing was discovered when images from different months were compared. On some photographs, the structures were visibly damaged, as if someone had deliberately fired at them. Debris, craters, traces of explosions. Someone was methodically destroying these mysterious ships right in the desert. And this turned out not to be the only place like this. In the Gobi Desert, satellites discovered another complex. Mock-ups of destroyers and frigates. Smaller ships, but no less mysterious and detailed. The railway system in the Gobi was even more complicated, with branches and parallel tracks imitating group maneuvers of several ships at once. And in the deserts of Inner Mongolia, they found a third site. This time not ships, but an exact replica of a city block with government buildings. All the sites are heavily guarded, all appeared in recent years, as if a secret network of some military test sites stretched across northwestern China. Experts checked all the archived images and found that these strange structures grew gradually. In 2021, in the Taklamakan, there were only outlines in the sand. By the end of 2022, metal structures appeared, tall masts, antennas. The construction proceeded with Chinese punctuality, something new every month. At first, two smaller ships were placed inside the large outline. Then they were removed and the whole perimeter began to fill. By January 2023, the outlines had turned into almost photographic copies of real warships. But they were building not only ships. Nearby appeared warehouses, barracks, command posts, radar stations, targeting systems, missile launchers, entire military towns in the middle of 3 different deserts, connected by some mysterious purpose. But what were these ships? This is where the most interesting part began. When military experts carefully studied the shapes of these desert giants, they discovered a stunning fact. These were not Chinese ships. The largest silhouettes exactly matched American Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carriers, the most modern and powerful carriers in the world, and the smaller ships copied American Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the backbone of the modern U.S. Navy. The similarities were too precise to be accidental. The flight decks of the carrier were laid out exactly where they should be. The superstructures stood in the correct places. Even the catapults for launching planes were marked with mathematical precision. And that replica of the city block in Inner Mongolia looks suspiciously similar to the center of Taipei, the capital of Taiwan, including buildings resembling the presidential office and key ministries. Someone had spent enormous resources to recreate American warships and the Taiwanese capital in the smallest detail. But why? The explanation came unexpectedly. On one of the next images, analysts noticed that one of the ships in the Taklamakan had disappeared, leaving behind only smoking debris and a crater. Then the second ship in the Gobi disappeared. Then the third one in Inner Mongolia. And then it became clear, these were not monuments, not museums, and not a secret shipyard. They were targets. China had built exact replicas of American warships and the Taiwanese capital in 3 different deserts for one single purpose: to practice destroying them. After carefully studying the images of all the sites, military experts determined that the mock-ups were equipped with special equipment. They were fitted with radar reflectors that imitated the signals of real American ships. Heat generators created infrared radiation, similar to running engines. This means that the Chinese managed to make their missiles see the mock-ups as if they were real warships. Those strange rails also started to make sense. The mock-up ships moved along them, imitating the maneuvers of real aircraft carriers at sea. The bends and turns of the tracks reproduced the zigzag movements ships performed to dodge missile attacks. China was not just firing at stationary targets. It was practicing strikes on moving, maneuvering ones. And they were not using ordinary shells. The craters and damage seen on the satellite images were left by ballistic missiles, the very same carrier killers that China is so proud of. The missiles launch from mainland China, climb high into the stratosphere, and then come crashing down on the target at tremendous speed. In the final stage of flight, a maneuverable warhead separates from the main missile, allowing it to change course and accurately hit even moving ships. The distance from the launch sites to the targets in the deserts is about 1,500 miles. This is exactly the same as from mainland China to the American bases on Guam or to aircraft carriers in the South China Sea. Every shot in the desert is practice for strikes on American ships in case of a military conflict. And the strikes on the Taipei mock-up appear to be practice for capturing the Taiwanese capital. But it wasn't only the carrier killers being tested. Satellites recorded launches of other types of missiles, cruise missiles capable of flying at low altitudes to evade air defense systems, and hypersonic missiles that reach a speed several times the speed of sound. Each type of missile was tested on its own targets. Some aimed at moving ships, others at stationary buildings, and others at hidden, sheltered targets. The tests continue all year round. Satellites detect launches every few weeks, sometimes from one desert, sometimes from another. Over the past 2 years, the Chinese have conducted more anti-ship missile tests than the US did in the entire previous decade, and each time, their accuracy improves. Billions of dollars have been spent on these desert ranges. Just transporting materials to such remote locations cost China as much as an entire military program of a small country. But they did not cut corners. Each mock-up was built with meticulous precision, and every system worked like clockwork. This entire giant complex of several desert ranges is a rehearsal for a future war. China is methodically practicing a scenario where American aircraft carriers try to approach the shores of China or Taiwan, and Chinese missiles sink them one by one. And judging by the fact that only wreckage remains of the mock-ups, the rehearsals are going very well. But the desert ships are only 1/3 of the whole picture. While the entire world puzzled over the mystery of the ships in the sand, Chinese shipyards were building something even more ominous. Strange barges that Western intelligence has dubbed water bridges. Satellites captured 3 barges joining together to form a huge floating bridge from the rear barge, through the middle one, to the front one, and from there directly to the beach. The width of the bridge was calculated exactly for unloading heavy tanks. Each barge is equipped with powerful retractable supports, which fold up at sea and lower to the bottom near shore to lift the hull above the water, like oil platforms. Each barge has a tower equipped with a telescopic bridge section. When the supports fix the barges in place, the towers open their telescopic bridges, connecting all 3 barges into a single crossing more than half a mile long. Such bridges can unload an entire tank battalion with all its equipment in just 1 hour. In a day, several hundred armored vehicles. And most importantly, these barges are able to operate where landings were previously impossible because of coral reefs or shallow water. They turn almost any coastline into a potential landing site. Experts have calculated such water bridges, combined with mobilized civilian ferries, can land about 60,000 soldiers with all their equipment on the island in the first 24 hours. And they can land not at ports, which can be mined and destroyed, but right on the beaches, bypassing all traditional fortifications. Meanwhile, as the world debates the mysterious desert ships and bridge barges, something even more frightening is secretly rising not far from Beijing. Just 3 years ago, this was an ordinary residential area. Then all the residents were relocated, the houses were demolished, and on the cleared land, a grand construction project began. Now hundreds of cranes are working here, digging the deepest pits and laying underground tunnels. The construction site covers about 2 square miles, 10 times the size of the Pentagon. Chinese authorities refuse to comment on what is happening and give no answers to journalists' questions. American intelligence believes that a new main command center of China is being built underground, a bunker capable of withstanding multiple nuclear strikes. From there, the invasion of Taiwan would be coordinated, along with control of the fleet and air force and orders to the missile forces. The underground complex is being built so that Chinese leadership can continue to command the war, even if a nuclear exchange begins. And all this is happening against the backdrop of a record military buildup by China. In just the past year, China has put into service more new warships than most countries have in their entire navies. New aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, amphibious ships are under construction. The missile forces are receiving ever more advanced systems. The Army is practicing landing operations on a scale the world hasn't seen since World War II. Chinese ships already regularly patrol the waters around Taiwan, enter the Sea of Japan, and appear near Australia's shores. This is not just training. It is a demonstration of new capabilities, a show of strength, a rehearsal of future military operations. All these preparations paint a clear picture for military experts. The desert ranges with mock-ups of ships and cities are teaching the Chinese how to sink the American fleet and capture key enemy targets. The bridge barges are being prepared to deliver the invasion army to the island in a matter of hours. The underground super command center will ensure control of the operation, even under nuclear strikes. What frightens most is that the Chinese are not really trying to hide their preparations anymore. The ships in the deserts are clearly visible from satellites. The barges train in full view of the whole world. The underground construction near Beijing goes on in the open, though still without comment. This is no longer secret preparation. It is a show of strength, a message to the whole world. We are ready, we are capable, and we will do it. According to military analysts, all these preparations can mean only one thing. The question is no longer whether China will dare to invade Taiwan. The only question now is when. And that moment may come within the next 2 or 3 years. The sands of the Chinese deserts, where the wreckage of American warships already lies, already know the answer. It is only a matter of time before the rest of the world learns it too.